Hello, my name is Chelsea Wiley, and you are watching my presentation on General Albert Sidney Johnston from the Confederate Army. This is for History 2305, Section 2. My hope is that you find this presentation both entertaining and informative. Let's get started. Albert's early life. He is the youngest son of Dr. John Johnston and Abigail Harris Johnston. He was born in 1803 in Washington, Kentucky. He married at the age of 26 to a woman named Henrietta Preston in 1829 after attending college. She died some years later of tuberculosis. He then married a second wife who was the first cousin of Henrietta, and her name was Eliza Griffin. The first of two schools that he went to was Transylvania University, where he befriended another student named Jefferson Davis. Albert Sidney Johnston then went on to West Point Military Academy in New York, where he graduated 8th in his class of 41. He was then commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 2nd Infantry of the United States Army. Now that his education is complete and his career underway, which war was Albert in that brought him the most notoriety, and why? During his military career, he served in 5 wars. The first war was the Black Hawk War. This picture portrays a scene from that war. Albert served in the 6th Regiment as an infantry officer, and he resigned in 1834. The second war that he served in was the Texas Revolution. Albert Johnston had enlisted in 1836 as a private in the Texas Army, despite his previous experience as an officer. It was here that he was appointed as a brigadier general. During his service, he was challenged to a duel by Felix Houston. Upon refusal to draw and shoot, General Johnston was wounded in the pelvis. This is a standard issue general's hat. It is made of felt with a gold cord and the United States insignia across the front. This is what you would typically find generals, such as General Johnston, wearing with their uniform. He served next during the Mexican-American War. The general was part of the 1st Texas Rifle Volunteers, and he later became commander of the 2nd Cavalry. After leaving the Texas Volunteers, he was reinstated in the United States Army and led the expedition against Brigham Young and the Mormons in the Utah War. Depicted here is General Johnston leading his troops into a battle that ended without the use of ammunition. That's right, not one shot. No one was injured through an act of violence during this war. The most influential part of his military career is when he joined the Confederacy in the beginning of the Civil War in 1861. He was then made a full general and was in command of a large number of troops. The estimated number of cavalry members he had was around 40,000, and he was also in control of the entire military regime from Texas to the Appalachian Mountains. The Battle of Shiloh, which this map here depicts, is when Ulysses S. Grant and his men captured both of the forts, Donelson on the Cumberland River and Henry on the Tennessee River. Once the Union had control of both of these rivers, it forced General Johnston to move his forces to Corinth, Mississippi. After regrouping and combining forces with P.G.T. Beauregard, they decided to attack Grant on April 5th. But Mother Nature had other ideas, and with heavy rains, they were delayed until the 6th. On April 6, 1862, Johnston and his men attacked, and in the beginning of this campaign, they were quite successful. However, early on in the battle, General Albert Sidney Johnston was hit in the leg by artillery, and it severed an artery. He bled to death moments later. Speculation suggests that the duel he was in with Felix Houston caused nerve damage, which made him unaware of the severity of his wound. He was most likely injured by friendly fire. Upon examination, it was concluded that General Johnston had an unused tourniquet in his pocket. It is popular belief that this would have saved his life. But if it had, he wouldn't have earned his title. General Albert Sidney Johnston is the highest ranking officer ever killed in action in the United States. With his death, the Confederates lost the battle 2 days later. There were over 23,000 casualties, including the general. This was the bloodiest battle ever waged up to this point. General Albert Sidney Johnston had 2 burials. The first was in the city of New Orleans, and then in 1867 he was brought to his final resting place at the State Cemetery in Austin, Texas. In 1902, the United States Commission built and placed this monument on the spot where the General Johnston received the wound that ultimately killed him. It is made from a concrete base with 4 pyramids, 1 on each corner, of 8-inch artillery shells, and a cannon in the middle. His name is also engraved on the front of the monument. This monument is actually one of the 5 on the Shiloh battlefield. Without General Albert Sidney Johnston's sacrifice and his receiving the title of the highest-ranking officer to die in the battle, the Shiloh battle wouldn't have received the attention it has, and we would be devoid of this fascinating piece of history. So what decision did General Albert Sidney Johnston make that impacted the Civil War? He chose to reinstate several times throughout his military career, which ultimately led to his death and the title earned because of his rank. His decision to give his all to our country is related to today because we have a sense of honor and a legacy to maintain. Although the Confederacy fell, his determination still rings true. I think whether this was in the 1800s or now, a sense of pride and citizenship of our great country is had by all, and because of brave men and women like General Johnston, we live in a free and good country.